Yes, good evening, everyone. Good to have you all joining us from, I believe, across the country. Today, again, in our fourth discussion on pre-draft NCF School Education, I'm joined by three very distinguished guests who were kind enough to accept my invitation to be with us this evening. I'll quickly welcome them and then we will straight dive into discussion. So I have Dr. Jyoti Gupta, who is uh, the director at the DPA Sahibabad. While she wears multiple hats, I believe, but that's the one I more prominently know her from. And more than that, I've known her for a while. A wonderful human being and a wonderful educator, and I'm grateful for her to accept my invitation. And thank you very much. Good to see you once again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. And thank you for considering, what I think about the NCF and NEP. So thank you for giving the opportunity.
Most welcome, Dr. Jyoti. Good to have you. I have Dr. Venunadhan Pillai, who is the executive principal. That's what we know at this SSVM institution in Coimbatore. I have also known Mr. Pillai for a while, a very, very distinguished educator. And more importantly, he holds his point of view on subjects, so which is why we thought to hear from him as well. So Dr. Pillai, good to have you, and we look forward to hearing from you and how you see the entire document.
Thank you very much, Gaurava. I see Abhishek also here. We met yesterday.
Yes, so it's a very small, I believe, fraternity.
Right.
You will sooner, more than often we catch up with each other, and Abhishek obviously is here as well. Good evening, Abhishek, and good to have you as well. While I believe we have interacted many a times, but I thought I should invite you and hear your perspective as well. Good to have you, and Abhishek, for a better introduction in terms of what he is right now. He is at present the principal at, I believe, the MIT group of institutions, which are based in Pune. I think they have multiple chain of schools and institutions. So Abhishek is leading, I believe, their vertical of schools. So good to have you as well, Abhishek. And we would love to hear what you think about this particular document and these specific 3 points as well. Right.
Thank you.
That is the way we will do this. And I will once again, on behalf of my entire team, would like to welcome my guests and everybody who is joining us from across the country. Let's have a great conversation. Let's at least try to demystify whatever we can of this particular document, which is a very voluminous document, as we understand. I was making this as one of the point before anybody had joined, or I think few of you had joined that point in time, do we have any educator from Karnataka joining us from here? I mean, if you are here, can we have a quick virtual show of hand, raise of hand? Because why I'm making that as a specific mention is because if you understand the government of Karnataka, the newly elected government of Karnataka is proposing, or in fact, they have put in their manifesto that they will be doing or redoing the entire NEP in the state, which is they will be having their own version of the NEP, which is a major sort of a surprise to begin with, number one. But because education remains as a state subject, not very, very surprising also at the same time. But because it is Karnataka, and Karnataka being the first stage which had implemented NEP in 2021, this is going to make a lot of ripple effects, I believe, across the country. Now, having said this, that is I intentionally am not going to put that from a political side as a question. My intention was to understand how does it really impact the entire process for an educator who is any which way burdened by the very fact that the larger task at hand is about implementation. Now, if you suddenly come and say that there is whatever you have done, you have to redo it again, that's adding salt to the injury effect. That's the way I see it. But having said this, we'll take that as a question across the board. How does it really impact? But for now, I will request if Dr. Jyoti, if you are appropriately placed, if not, once you go on the laptop, can we come to you maybe second? So I will, are you on your laptop? Yeah, good, wonderful. So I will request you to kickstart this dialogue and we will go from there on.
Okay, so thank you, Gaurava, for giving this chance once again. So what I would like to say that the draft NCF is there, but not many things are clear there yet. And in fact, today we were having a conversation with Secretary Education, and all of us were there. And this thing also came up there that what suggestions can be given and what can be given as an input so that the NCF gets its final shape. So there also we said that there are a lot of things that are not clear yet. Though whatever is mentioned in the NCF is pretty much the same as what is mentioned in the policy. So when we are talking about the various courses that can be taken from different disciplines, again, the idea is that there should not be any silos there. The idea is that the children should be able to take up the interdisciplinary and the multidisciplinary subjects so that the children are not just studying science, or they are not just studying the subjects from one particular discipline. Similarly, it is also that nothing is extracurricular or co-curricular. When we talk about sports or when we talk about arts, they are all domains, or we are talking about life skills. These are all domains that are embedded into the curriculum. So when we talk about curriculum, it is what is the child doing when the child is coming to the school. So academics, sports, arts, everything is a part of the curriculum. So what all is embedded into the curriculum, we have to look at that, and there should not be any silos. So that is why it speaks about, taking the children, taking different subjects from different domains. That is, the child can pick up one math or the computing subject, can pick up the sciences, one, two, three, whatever they want to pick up, can pick up the various subjects from the arts, can pick up the various subjects from the humanities, can pick up the different subjects from the social sciences. So all this is there. It was mentioned in the NEP. Now, how to implement these is going to be a challenge, because most people were saying that, how do you timetable all of this practically in a school? So obviously some of us who are progressive schools, and I'm sure most of the schools who are represented here are also progressive schools, we've already tried to embed this because we knew this was coming in. And the CBSE, as it is, from the past couple of years, has been taking out different manuals, whether it was for sports, or it was for art integration, or it was for experiential learning, pedagogies, assessment, holistic progress cards were already, piloted. So we knew that the competency-based education first, has to be transacted into the classrooms, then obviously has to be assessed and has to be reported through the holistic progress cards, and all domains have to come in. 360-degree assessment of the children have to be done. So all this is there. Now, along with that, there is one more thing that is not very clear, is what about the board examinations, because one is talking about 16 credits that have to be taken over the 4 semesters. So those 16 credits, how is it going to work? And how are the board exams? Are the board exams going to be diluted as the low stake exams? Whether the exams are going to be once in a year or they are going to be twice in a year. So there are a lot of clarifications that need to come in as of now. All these things are right now in a very, I would say, in a very fluid state. So, so that is why it is important that all of us read, all of us look at the practicality of it in the diversity and in the context of the cities, the districts, the states that we are in, and then we give our inputs accordingly.
Okay, so again, I think what was the I think the secretary was able to answer any of the questions which you guys posed.
So
Was
yes, it was a great interaction today, and we had questions regarding the CUET exams. We
Mhm.
had questions regarding the dummy schools
Mhm.
that the children are going to. That here, at one hand, we are talking about the quality of education in the classrooms. We
Mhm.
are talking about quality of education in the schools, and what happens to the quality of education once the children are in 11th and 12th and they are being lured by these coaching centers to get into the dummy
Correct.
schools. So
Mhm.
what kind of skills and competencies are we talking about? And here we are talking about supple. And if you look at the items that were asked, or the questions that were asked in the supple pilot that was done, and I'm sure a few schools who are represented today, the principals may have seen what kind of questions that were asked. Like one of the examples that was given even today was that child of class 8 was asked as to if you have to measure a staircase, what would be the unit? Would it be centimeters? Would it be millimeters? Would it be inches? Would it be kilometers, or would it be meters? So it was not what is there mentioned, in the everyday book, but the application of what you are learning in your classroom. So if that be so, how are the coaching centers going to, give those skills to the children? And we are talking about holistic education. And if we are doing that, then how is it going? And he was concerned himself about this. I mean, he's the one who brought this up. And we spoke about giving the weightage to the examinations. In the competitive examinations, we spoke about bringing in probably a system where the children who are studying up till class 12th, no competitive examinations are taken until unless they've given their board exams. So, a couple of decades back, when the children would give the competitive examinations, there would be a time lapse of about 6 months for them to prepare for these competitive examinations. There has to be convergence between the syllabi of the different boards. Like you opened by saying that Karnataka is talking about its own NEP. So for many years, we have seen that in Delhi University, the students were represented by one particular state because, of course, the cutoffs of that particular state were much higher. And this year, there are not many admissions. You can't even count them on one hand. Not those many admissions have also happened. So the government has its own, challenges. But then we have our own challenges as schools. We cannot run the schools, if all the children, they go to the coaching centers. So the
Correct.
questions are larger. Here we are talking about the national curriculum framework. We are talking about quality. We are talking about holistic development of the children, because you are looking at the child as a whole. You just don't want to talk about academics. But the parents are thinking something else. For them, the agenda is something else. It's difficult to explain to them as to what the school entails. And the coaching centers are coming down as low as class 7. They want to take the children from class 7. So what is the future? Because NEP, when you talk about, and when you look at the NCF, they are talking about what the future generations of this country will look like. How will they behave? What kind of work will they do? And it is very much aligned by the vision of the Prime Minister right now when he says, Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, the Atal Tinkering Labs. the technology, the coding, the computing. So how is all of this possible when we do not align, the various aspects of the education together? When we do not align the school education and the higher education? When you say that, okay, there are different disciplines, you pick up different subjects and you can do an interdisciplinary study. But if the AICTE does not allow the children to take up one science and one maths and do an interdisciplinary study, let us say, take up one humanities and one arts subject. So everything has to align. So kudos to you, Gaurava, that you are taking on this leadership role where you are talking at different levels. And I'm very sure that you are going to put all the recommendations together and act as a pressure group to give it to the ministry, where at least they start thinking and they start talking about it. So we were very happy with today's interaction with the secretary, because some of these points he brought out himself, and not to even a single one he said that there's no solution. He said, let's work together.
No, that's a very heartening thing to hear, honestly, and especially I think he's the one who has really resumed the role very, very recently. And at the same time, I think the question of CUET is such a pertinent one, I would say, because that shakes the very fundamental premise of the coaching thing which you're talking about dummy schools and all that stuff. Because we were raising these questions ourselves, which is example, if CUET just very casually recommends that you do your 50% in your 12 and you can write the examination, then where is the overall schooling as a premise wherein you're talking about experiential learning, etc., etc.? So I'm glad that these are being picked up, and the honorable secretary is sincere about it, at least to discuss it, because that's the first step in that direction, and I'm sure he'll do something about it. But having said this, thank you for sharing your views. I think good, because I think this discussion happened early today in the morning, and you shared us more of a glimpse so that everybody gets benefited, because I was not really part of it. I will go through the recording as such, but I'm happy that you brought it up. Thank you very much, Dr. Jyoti. I quickly go to Dr. Pillai now. Dr. Pillai, over to you. And I think you can once give us a larger perspective on the document itself, which is the NCF, and then we can have your specific view on these points which we want to discuss today. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And as you mentioned, good evening to everybody. And I'm seeing a lot of known faces and unknown faces. Of course, unknown faces does not mean that they're strangers. Only friends we have not met, that's all. So good evening to everyone. And I have to start with an apology that, as you mentioned, it's a voluminous document. I've not got time to really study the document per se. And when I'm speaking, probably it will be mostly a lot of assumptions and my prior reading and all. So they may not be very authentic in that such, completely confined to the document. But one thing I want to say, whether it is one political party or another political party, I have no affiliation with all these political parties, but education is a domain that requires a lot of reformation. We cannot dwell into a domain, isolated domain, when all other countries are going faster and going ahead of us. We have to keep ourselves abreast. So to keep ourselves abreast, certainly we have to make such progressive initiative. And I am 100% sure that it's a revolutionary framework aims to transform education in India. It is also poised to leapfrog into a new era of education. And I believe that it's flexible, innovative, and responsive to the needs of the learners and society at present. And I am also connecting it to the credit framework, which is all these are all certainly interconnected. The national NEP, the credit framework, because we have to look at it as an inverted pyramid actually, because it's always, we look at not inverted as a pyramid to the top of the apex of the pyramid. The apex is the higher education. From the higher education, the base have to come. So accordingly, if you look at that one, the credit system is something that is introduced recently, is very important. That is going to reform the higher education. Accordingly, this has to come down to the school education as well. At present, there is no such credit system in school education, except for NIOS. Actually, in NIOS, it is mentioned that each subject is assigned to 240 hours of self-study and total 5 subjects. And secondary is there in the credit framework itself. And secondary and senior secondary level, which makes it 1,200 hours of and 40 credits in 1 year. So 40 credits in 1 year. And each credit is equal to 30 hours of total study. This is mentioned in the credit framework. So that way, it is actually, that was when I was reading only, I found that this credit framework is there for NIOS. Probably these credit framework will be considered or internally considered even in the other school systems also. When AIU, Association of Indian Universities, consider foreign qualifications equivalence, they also look at, they specify that certain number of subjects to be completed. For example, IGCSE, 5 subjects in IGCSE, 2 to 3 subjects in A levels. In when it comes to IBDP with the 24 points, minimum 24 points. And when it comes to IBCP, there is a new document that is there. So all this actually it is there already, but we are putting them into the framework. And when it comes to the reformation in the curriculum itself, certainly, we have to take it forward. Not only that, physical education, art, culture, all these things are part of Western. Actually, our education is mostly Western-driven, Westernized education system. And we need to integrate our elements in the education system. And this framework is doing that one. So it is encompassing all years, actually, early years, primary, secondary, vocational, university education. And that is the drive that's happening. University education, all of them are integrated into one on an axis of academic, vocational, and physical education. And a credit bank is also created accordingly, and credit transfer is also done. And as mentioned in that framework, multiple entry, multiple exit, ME approach, or lateral entry, lateral exit approach. All these things. Otherwise, for example, in higher education, if we take the example of higher education, of course, I know that we are concentrating on school education, but without mentioning the higher education, we can't complete the school education because that is where our students are going to. So in higher education, as somebody who is studying for a degree program of 3 or 4 years honors program, and he is not able to complete the last semester, and he will not get anything in hand. He does not have a degree. But when we have this lateral entry, lateral exit, or the multiple entry, multiple exit, at least there will be a certificate, there will be a diploma, there is a degree, postgraduate program. And in school education also, these things can be included. And timely incorporation of the subjects of Indian context is very important. If you look at the curricula of other countries, you can see a large element of the local color in that one. And why can't we have it? Certainly we can have it. And of course, at the same time, we are not living in an island, on an island, and we can't confine ourselves to this country alone. We have to have elements of global elements. We have to have 21st century skills embedded in the system. All these things have to go. So this framework certainly, taking a forward. For example, interdisciplinary approach. If you take interdisciplinary approach, every subject has got common elements. And if the teachers are able to create an interdisciplinary unit, every teacher who is going to the same class will be teaching almost the same topic in their own perspective. So the learning will be more sticky. So interdisciplinary approach is very good. And physical education is something that is abandoned. For example, actually namesake it's happening. For example, if a student is weak in mathematics, what happens? his physical education is taken out and he's held and he's taught mathematics, or his other subjects like music or creative arts or visual arts. These things are taken out. So it is very important that we have to give this important. We are talking about this multiple intelligence and all these things. So accordingly, we have to develop the framework, the credit, we have to create credit for each subject, and these credits have to be taken towards university. And upon completion of certain credits, they have to be given certificate, diploma, or degree accordingly. All this indication. Of course, I agree with what Dr. Jyoti mentioned about not having clarity on a lot of things. Yes, that is true. At initial stage, we will not have. When we start implementing, we will have more problems. But without initiating something, we will not be able to do anything or any kind of information in education system. So I strongly believe that this one is going to spearhead to us to a new era of education. Certainly, despite whatever political issues that are behind this initiative, without considering those political aspects, I will say these things will certainly take us forward. And this is a good initiative, and it is an inevitable initiative. It has to happen, and we have to take these things forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pillai. I think good to see that optimism, and I really compliment. That's the way I see the entire school education in our country. They are very, very optimistic, and I believe that optimism stays, because I think at the same time there's a little skepticism comes to my mind, which I think reflected in Dr. Jyoti's initial thought as well, which was that a lot of clarity is needed, a lot of clarity, and I really feel the time is somehow is a luxury which we have in our hand right now. It's already been 3 years now. Next year is election. I'm not sure of how much of political will go behind this to implement it. But having said this, the real point of the matter is what you mentioned out, that this is about individual leader taking the onus, which is every school leader taking the onus and obviously taking out the best from these particular 2 documents, which are very progressive in nature, which are no 2 ways about it. I will first like to quickly have Mr. Abhishek coming in and sharing his thoughts. Then we'll go for a Q&A, wherein obviously we can all share our thoughts at length. Abhishek, over to you.
So, Gaurava, before I start, I don't think that you will be able to see me, right? Like,
yeah. Your video is giving you some trouble.
My camera is like betraying with me until it's like you are doing some kind of black magic from the back. I don't know. But I can assure you that there is like it's original Abhishek Bagchi speaking and not an AI avatar, because these days you can't trust who is speaking and who is in front of you. Jokes apart, like I apologize to each and every one of you because something is happening to my camera, some weird stuff. Anyways, like yes, it's wonderful to hear Jyoti ma'am and Dr. Pillai always, like we keep on meeting each other in different forum. Yes, I would like to take it up from a different perspective. Maybe the whole thing we can actually the whole NCF, like thank God, like it's like more than 600-page document and hardly all educators are reading it. But thank God, Gaurava, like you are actually creating these kind of environments where people are coming and listening to us, and even educators like us are going back to the document again and again and reading those pages. Like I actually would like to echo what Jyoti ma'am said. Like there are already schools, progressive schools before the launch of NCF and NEP. We are trying to look into this whole academic front from the perspective of an interdisciplinary approach. Now, if you are looking into that way, then definitely physical education, or even if vocational education, we don't have to have separate chapters or separate sections for them, right? Because they are already a part of interdisciplinary. Like now we have to understand like what we mean by interdisciplinary. Most of this people here already know that, but I would like to give a very simple example to make people understand like what is going on here. See, when we go to a bazaar and we go for shopping, We buy lots and lots of vegetables, and the vegetables belonging to different vendors, we do some kind of cross-curricular stuff there. When we are taking those, vegetables or ingredients we have taken and make a soup out of it, we are making a multidisciplinary approach in it. But when we talk about interdisciplinary, we are actually, when we are taking the soup, but mind it, like when you're doing an interdisciplinary stuff, we are clearly looking at the ingredients also, like if you're taking at the soup. Like, sorry, I just mentioned, multidisciplinary will be a salad rather, where each and every individual ingredients are very much obvious. But when it comes to soup, maybe the ingredients are not very obvious, but some are visible. Now, imagine a situation, and I'm sure that this kind of situation is coming very soon, within 5 years, and I'll tell you why I think so, that this interdisciplinary approach, the whole NCF, there will be educators like us, and in your platform, maybe in another 2 years, we'll be discussing the same. That whole NCF will be taken from not as a 600 pages or more than 600 pages, rather a single document with one chapter, and that is all transdisciplinary. Now, if you are looking at it from that angle and that perspective, then our students, our beloved students will come to school to play football and learn physics and learn arts and also learn vocational, skills, instead of having a timetable, which is a really difficult challenge, Jyoti ma'am already said, right? So to include all these things in a timetable, so forget about a timetable. So I am actually dreaming or aspiring about a situation, I don't know Dr. Pillai will be agreeing with me or not, where forget about timetable and students will be coming to play football or do any kind of physical education, which, explicitly written in NCF. It is a fantastic document, I really appreciate. But when it comes to implementation, leaders like us and whoever teachers listening to me here and whoever educators listening to me, I think we have to walk the transdisciplinary way, because only in that way we can actually dissolve these kind of different pedagogies and different content to deal with, and we can actually teach a student that, look, with these ingredients we can make a salad, we can make a soup, but also we can make a cake. And when we make a cake, the ingredients are not visible, but we love cakes, right? So that's the point here. So I think it's time when we should start talking about making a cake out of this NCF, rather than talking about making a good salad or making a good soup. Now, why I'm telling this? Because there will be a huge amount of individualized learning in the future will be, I will not use the word sabotage, but will be actually taken care by the artificial intelligence. And this is inevitable. So we don't require to make a separate curriculum. Already curriculum can be made by ChatGPT. What we require is able educator to validate that particular content. So the educator is required to validate that, as well as to actually create an environment to give the right prompt, we say in the technical language, to generate a transdisciplinary curriculum. So here we don't have to work really day and night to make a superlative curriculum. Rather, our machines will do it. What we require to do is to understand what is the difference between a cake and a soup. That is where the actual the skill or the ability of an educator will be in future. So if we can actually teach physics, or if we can actually understand how to teach physics, okay. So yeah, nice. So if you can actually learn how to teach physics, or have that approach, have that understanding that you can actually teach physics using football, then definitely the transdisciplinary is possible. And all the hassles of making a very difficult timetable where you want to incorporate all the elements that NCF has told in 600 pages, it's a nightmare, let me tell you. And I know like many people may not be agreeing with me, but it's a nightmare to actually include each and everything that NCF is saying. So I think the approach need to change here. People may agree or not agree with me, but it's a time in next 5 years, we should have to change the approach to transdisciplinary from interdisciplinary. I think that should be NCF 2.0.
Okay, wonderful. I think great perspective, Abhishek, obviously you had your analogies to substantiate it. Jyoti ji kuch bol rahe hain, aap boliye, please.
So one more thing that I wanted to point out is when we are talking about the NCF and because the foundational stage NCF was published sometime in October. And, it also spoke about the age of the children. And, today we were also talking about this, that there is a whole lot of confusion because the states have now given out these circulars that the children of class 6 should be in class 1, because obviously the center told the states and states told to us, and we had finished the entire admission process for the foundational stage way back in October, November, and December. So now when they say, the age to be at 6 years in class 1, there are actually 3 classes below class 1. So there is pre-nursery, there is a nursery, and any nomenclature you use, prep or KG, is also there. So what will you do? Will you make one class repeat? Will you, because you can't suddenly come out and say that this is the age criteria and now you toe the line. So there has to be clear instructions from the center to the state, and from the state to the schools, or from CBSE to the schools like us, which talk about the age criteria as well. Now, another thing, there is a shift between, the previous NCF and now, where there was one NCF, right from class 1 to class 12 earlier, there are going to be 4 NCFs now under the new education policy. So it is very heartening to now see that at least the people are recognizing that the pedagogies and the assessments, the transaction and the reporting, everything is different for every level. So when we talk about, let us say, the foundational stage, or we talk about, the primary classes or the middle classes, or we talk about the secondary school, the transaction, the pedagogies have to be different, though if it is experiential, though it is art integrated, sports integrated, still what is required, what are the learning outcomes that are required at that point of time, what are the competencies required at that age, and then what are the kind of assessments that should be done at that particular stage. That is important. So you can't have similar assessments at all levels. And when we talk about assessments, and we are talking about the CBE, we are talking about competency-based education, there is a whole lot of change and a shift that has to come into the assessments. So there was a beginning that we all did with continuous and comprehensive evaluation, where we discussed different tools of assessment, etc. at that point of time, but it was like brought down. But again, in a new avatar, we are talking about again continuous and comprehensive evaluation. We are again talking about moving away from rote. We are again talking about outcome-based education. So when we are talking about outcome-based education, we need to measure the outcomes. So the total focus is on the outcome-based education, on the learning outcomes, which already have been defined by the CBSE and NCERT, which has to be adopted by everybody. So there's a whole lot of work to be done. The challenge is not in seeing whether the document is, what it is saying is good, it is not very good, something else can be done. The challenge is going to be in implementing this in the kind of diversity that we all live in.
Absolutely. In fact, Dr. Jyoti, I'm just prompted, Dr. Pillai, I'll just come to you before I ask this question. While you were absolutely, I'm sure, when the CC thing played out, everybody, more or less everybody who was here for the benefit of someone like me who maybe came into the entire fold in 2013, you see any difference in the approach, the way Again, that was a progressive sort of a step which was taken compared to when you see it on a policy level. Do you see any specific intent-wise difference? Do you see there's a approach difference or whatever it is? Is there any difference which you see from the last sort of a big move around CCE compared to an NEM, NEP or an NCF implementation this time around? Do you see any major stark difference? Do you see at all? Dr. Jyoti, that's a question for you. I wanted to check with you because I believe you will. You were.
So, Gaurava, what I would say is, in spirit they are similar, but in implementation there has to be a difference. Otherwise, this will also fail.
Exactly. That's what I was arriving at.
CCE was a great vision. Unfortunately, at that time, the continuous professional development was not a mandate.
Correct.
Neither for the schools nor for the CBSE.
Correct.
So, new education policy is not just talking about skilling, it is also talking about reskilling and upskilling of the teachers. So, there is continuous professional development of the teachers happening. We are talking all the time about, upskilling and reskilling. All of us need it. I mean, I as a principal need it all the time. I need to read, I need to attend sessions like yours. I need to be on various platforms. I need to be reading. So that is where, when Dr. Pillai was talking about IB, he was talking about Cambridge, he was talking about what the other boards are doing, international boards are doing. They are progressive because they skill their teachers all the time, every year. When they give the, let us say, the affiliation to their schools, they look at how many hours. It's a mandate. So a similar kind of a mandate has been brought in here also. The fourth NCF that I was talking about is for the teachers. The NCTE is going to take that out. So obviously when there's going to be SWAP, that is a school, standard quality framework, which is there. So the schools have to be setting certain kind of standards. If the school will not have that standard, it will automatically not get the affiliation again. And CBSE has been named as a SSA again. It is going to set standards not just for its own schools, but for the other boards as well. So standard setting is very important. Similarly, along with the framework, there also comes in things like Parak, which is going to bring all the boards at one platform. So there's going to be some kind of parity between the different educational boards across the country. It is also bringing in foundational literacy and numeracy. It is also bringing in SAFL. So there was NAS already, but SAFL introduces another kind of, let us say, competency-based testing for classes 3, 5, and 8. Then there is, Nippon, under Nippon Bharat also, there are guidelines which guide us towards what kind of children are we looking at, what kind of assessments are we looking at. So everything put together, I think, yes, the base would be, what was envisioned in CCE, but it wasn't padded and supported by everything else. And that is why probably it just fell flat, because people just did not understand. But now with, blended learning for the teachers, online, offline, set standards, written down quality frameworks, I think this is not going to fail, is what my belief is.
Wonderful. No, I think that's a great, I think, differentiation, and that's very important because I think I'm also getting few messages which resonate with your thought, which is that there was a difference between how things were done then and compared to now. The approach entirely is fairly, very, very different, I would say. Okay, fair enough. That's a good observation. Dr. Pillai, you were saying something. Please go ahead.
Yeah, actually, my experience is mostly in international curricula, not in national curricula. And, when I was working abroad, I used to get students coming from India from national curriculum and the state curriculum. And I could see that, these students were following the rote learning approach, and they were actually having a different style of learning, different approach. And after some time, they were easily taken into the multidisciplinary or transdisciplinary approach. They used to excel in the class. So I was a bit critical about our approaches. But after coming to India in 2016, after working and after observing the changes in the education system here, I'm now less critical, because the education policy that we have, everything, only the implementation is the problem. And implementation has to happen at school level. And again, actually, the paradoxes are there. One of the paradoxes is this entrance tests for different one. Once we have a standardized assessment system, this entrance examination, if that is present, even in the NEP that is mentioned there, it is still there. If that is there, certainly the spirit of the whole policy will be taken out. And the students will concentrate on that, dummy schools will come. So it is very important that we have criterion referenced assessment, or that is what internationally what we call it, criterion referenced assessment, where the skills or competencies are tested. Their level of competencies are tested. Simply, this can be compared with the driving test that we go. And we are not competing against any other driving test candidates of the test day. And we are showing our competency to drive a car on the road. And once we prove that, we are given a license. Similarly, education, we should have that outcomes clearly defined, or criterion, the set of criteria must be clearly defined. When the students are able to display that one, we will be able to graduate to them. And we had it in our system, in our ancient education system, Gurukul system, this criterion referenced assessment was performed, it was done. So certainly this is one. So again, the timetabling, when you talk about timetabling, I will say timetabling is also easy if you adopt a school curriculum. Of course, the national education policy, all the syllabus, everything, you cannot integrate into one school curriculum, because there may be foundational subjects and extended other subjects, core subjects, extended foundational, all these things, different terminologies are used. All these things are there, but what is required for you, for your state, for your city, or for your village, you take the curriculum, make your curriculum properly within the school. Then, as Abhishek mentioned, there should be a transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary, or multidisciplinary approach we have to take. Disciplinary approach is no more accepted anywhere. Disciplinary approach, of course, can go into the deeper research space when the students are in the higher levels. But here, for example, what is not there in sports? Language is there, mathematics is there, coordination, a lot of collaboration is there. All these essential skills that we need are there in any of the sports, any of the games actually. That is where, we can integrate all these things in a transdisciplinary way. As he mentioned, transdisciplinary is something like a fruit cake, where you cannot see the real fruits used in that one, but you have the taste of everything there. And in the multidisciplinary, of course, the different fruits are seen. And in interdisciplinary also, we can see like that, we can create our system. And once the interdisciplinary classroom setting is created, interdisciplinary unit is planned collaboratively by the teachers, and they all go to the class. This is actually curriculum. Maybe India is a large country with different climatic zones and different weather conditions. So actually a framework cannot be standard for everybody. So we cannot say that this particular topic should be taught in the month of this month. So we have to adapt this one to suit our needs, and we have to create the school curriculum. Accordingly, if you do that one, certainly we will be able to integrate all these things into our curriculum. And assessment is something that cannot be taken out of teaching. Assessment is part of teaching. Assessment, it cannot be viewed as a separate entity at all. When you have to teach a student, you should first know what students know. So the assessment starts from there, a prior knowledge check. Accordingly, you have to modify your plans. You have to teach. You have to continuously assess. Assessment for learning, assessment as learning. All this, both of them have to happen. Then finally, assessment of learning on a criterion-based style. Accordingly, if you do that one, this is what is envisaged, though the terminology that I used may not be used that way, but this framework is using all this concept in our Indian way.
Correct.
That's it. That's what I want to say in this case. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think contextualizing what you mentioned is very, very important. And that is the Achilles heel, I would say, in this entire process as well. While we can take pride in saying we are a diverse country, but in this case, implementation at the diversity level will be a huge challenge, I would say. So having said this, lovely discussion, we quickly open this for Q&A. Anyone who has any question can please give us a virtual show of hand. We'll help you unmute. And then you can ask your question, or if you have any observation around the thing, you can do share with us. Yeah, Ms. Roja, go ahead.
Sir, good evening. Sir Pillai, sir, I would like to ask this question. While I'm a believer that we should be conducting a diagnostic to have the children fit into the grade that they are of that particular standard, we have a lot of resistance from parents citing the no detention policy and also the fact that it is right to education. So in fact, having this entrance test does not go very well with parents. So please help the parents understand why this is important for us. I believe it is good, but help me convince the parents too. Thank you so much.
All the best. All the best.
Okay. Thank you. Actually, it is not entrance test, certainly. It is not a test for detention. It is a test for knowing the students, their base, their current knowledge base. Otherwise, we can call it a placement test. For example, in one classroom, if you look at the composition of a classroom, all the students of the same class are not of the same level. And if any teacher claims that one, I will certainly challenge that one. I'm sure nobody will challenge that statement. Because we have gifted and talented, we have struggling students also. When we conduct a placement test, we understand the needs of the students. And we have to have a differentiated approach within the classroom. For example, if you have a multi-tier approach, where if you have 5 levels in a classroom identified, which is mostly the same as scientific researchers say that one. In a class, there are 5 different levels. I mean, extremely talented, slightly above the grade level, slightly below the grade level, extremely below the grade level. So once we conduct this placement test and understand the level, not at the beginning of the academic year, at the beginning of each topic that you teach, because prior knowledge is very important for you to reinforce the new knowledge in them, or inculcate a new knowledge in them, or teach them a new skill. You need to establish whether the child has got a knowledge base to learn this one. So this is what we call not a test to deter, retain students in the same class. So detention is not the case here. Actually, it is a placement test. If you do that one, that's embedded in the curriculum. It has to be embedded in the curriculum. It has to be embedded in your lesson plan. It has to be continuously done. Explicitly and implicitly. I think I have cleared your doubt.
Yeah. Riju, your question, Riju Srivastava. In fact, I have one message as well, which I can relay to all my panelists, which is what advantage does a child have which is going ahead with a regular school and not dummy school? It is very difficult to convince a parent. I thought that's a good question. How do you convince a parent? Yes, please.
May I answer, Gaurav?
Yes, yes, please go ahead.
So I think the whole purpose of NCF is that, like, the more you go into vocational training, it cannot be happen overnight. Like the dummy school, and the same question came to the secretary today, and he touched a very wrong area, and everyone started. Jyoti ma'am was part of it. I was watching it live. So yes, like it cannot happen overnight, but you have to get that trust, get that value. Once the parent start understanding the value of the vocational, because we educators may be understanding the value of it, because there will be a time when working with our hands will become very, very important. So the more this culture starts developing within our student community, within our parents community, and I would request all our educators to involve the parent into the process. Like, why not have the stakeholder, not only parent, the community and everyone. And so that impact will be very, very visible. And once the impact starts getting visible, the value will be understanding. Trust me, whoever asked this question, trust me, the parents have started realizing it already. And I think it will be another 2 to 5 years. I'm very, very optimistic in that this dummy school nexus that's going to, crumble, or not crumble, but actually this start getting reduced in a day by day. I think that's what my view in this particular.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I think if that is, I mean, handled in the way you are suggesting, maybe, and the utility is made evident by making everybody party to that progress of a student, because otherwise, usually a parent is very sort of right, emotionally binded to what his or her child says, right? They will not go to logics for that matter, right? Jyoti ji, before you say anything, there's one. Yeah, I'll come to you. Riju, you can unmute yourself, and then you can ask your question. Jyoti ji, over to you now. Yes.
So I want to add on to what you were saying and what Ms. Bagchi was also saying. The CBSE is, going to very soon come out with something that should dissuade the parents from sending the students to the dummy schools. There was an inspection of all the dummy schools that was done a couple of months back, and they've already collated the data. And the students of these dummy schools are not going to be allowed to sit for the examinations. And I'm very hopeful. And 2 days back, there was also a circular on dummy schools from the CBSE. So it's not just the children, it's actually the parents who have to be blamed. Parents are going through their own peer pressures also, because, they talk to each other and they go to these coaching centers, and these coaching centers are like monsters, I'll tell you. They will tell the parents, they will blackmail the parents, and they will tell them that if you want your child to be in IIT or in medical, then you need to send your child to a dummy school and not to a regular school, because the regular school is going to consume your time and the dummy school is not going to consume your time. You give us 4 lakh rupees, but do not pay 1 lakh to the school. Pay 50,000 to the dummy school. They will not say that we will reduce the fee, but you give out the money, we will take the money, the school will not take the money. The entire industry of education, Gaurava, is 93,000 crores. The schools are only 3%. The rest of them are coaching centers. So you can very well imagine as to what is happening. In school, we are talking about holistic education. We are talking about learning. We are talking about educating the children. We are talking about giving them skills and competencies. We are not selling the dreams to the children that they cannot realize. The coaching centers are selling the dreams to them which cannot be realized. Kota is today becoming the suicide capital of the country. All the children who are going there are under so much of stress. Are all of them getting into IIT? Are all of them getting into medicine? What is happening to the children who are not able to make it to good engineering colleges? They've lost out on the skills that the schools could have given them. They've lost out on the time that they could have prepared for something else. They have lost out on their confidence. They've lost out on their emotional well-being, on their mental well-being. And what are the kind of children we are sending into the society? The children have no communication skills. The children have no social skills. The children are emotionally weak. I think all of us together have to talk about it. And all of you who are in media should bring parents also to different platforms. And you should bring the parents of the children who have been, not successful, so that more and more parents can know that their children are losing out. I know of so many people who get lured by these coaching centers in class 11, but by the time the children are finishing their class 11, they realize they cannot crack the IIT. They realize that they have lost out on admissions in the good colleges. The children have become loners. They have no friends. They cannot go out. They cannot party. They are not normal children. They are abnormal children.
No, absolutely. So it's a beast of a question. I'll tell you, this is not. It has no easy answers. Everybody, there are a lot of questions I'm getting in my. So Riju, you are now unmuted. Do you have any question? Let's quickly have that, because I understand this question of dummy school and the. It doesn't have really very simple answers, to be very honest with you, because I'll share my own bit. I think CUET is a great opportunity, provided it is it is really reformed in the right level, because parents see any examination from a very standard standpoint. How do I get better score or a better rank? And they see coaching as an alternative. That is something which is very deep now ingrained into the system, wherein obviously, coming school at the same parity will be a very different sort of, I think, equilibrium which will have to be created. But more than that, if you look at from the standpoint of reform of a testing agency, if CUET makes sure it gives a different weightage to a person who's gone to a full-fledged school or has certain criteria or benchmarks set, just not the 50% criteria. If you would have seen, it just says you get a 50% and you write the CUET. That is actually technically saying, I don't need you to go to a school. Go to a typical self-learning portal as well. You write your examination, get 50%, you come and write CUET. That's it. It could actually be done very well because it's a very recent sort of testing format. I would have not said the same thing for JEE because it's archaic in the sense, but because CUET is so new, it had all the opportunity in the world to reform, align itself to the need or the challenges of the schooling system, and then come up with a CUET of a better version, I would say. In the current form, it only encourages coaching. It doesn't really support schooling. Riju, you have a question or you want to make an observation? I think Sulbha, so you have to put up a virtual show of hand. Mir Farooq Ahmed, आप physical hand दिखा रहे हैं, virtual show of hand दिखाना था, but never mind, I have seen it. So Mir Farooq ji, you'll have to unmute, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Good morning, good evening, everyone.
Sulbha, first your question, then I go to Mr. Mir Farooq, then I come to Deepika, you. Yeah.
I have a question. I'm comprehending with the dummy systems and all. In small towns and cities, it's very difficult to change the mindset of parents. That's where we have to work. And I go according with Mrs. Jyoti that CCE, probably its implementation partly was because parents didn't cooperate. I don't know if this is a correct thinking, but the mindset of the society has to change. And how do we go about doing that?
Can I
Yes.
ask?
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
My simple question is this: as a country, we will have to ask ourselves that whether we are going to produce doctors, engineers, IITians, are good human beings. If we are able to decide first what we need actually, do we need only doctors, engineers, KS officers, IS officers, or human beings? If we need human beings, then we will have to think on a larger perspective how to revolutionize the education in our schools. Because as Ms. Jyoti rightly said, students and parents are very much concerned about only to make their wards simply as doctors or engineers. Whether they are human beings or not, it hardly matters for them. And secondly, you will have to denounce the business part of education. Since business, if you are a business, you are taking it on business perspective, then the coaching centers have every right to give dreams and encourage students for going their coaching center in order to raise their business. So as my opinion is concerned, education cannot be taken as a business. And Government of India, if it wants to revive the system, first of all, will have to take a corrective decision to denounce this as a business. As you said yourself, quota, etc., they have become gains. I am sorry to say, for the destruction of the youth of the nation. Our youth are not normal now. You see, escapism is there. If you are getting a student in a school, he is very much concerned. He will stay in school for half an hour. He will prefer to go to coaching center because there are no parameters in order to make a personality, shape the personality of the child. You will have to face the disciplinary norm there, and side by side you will have to make your school so stress free and having all that which is needed, which the students love. So we need change. We need change on a larger platform. I think one more question to my gentleman there. He was telling me what difference between placement and entrance test. Sir, every individual has its own weaknesses and strengths. He needs certain set of pedagogy, and at the same time, you cannot generalize a question paper for all the class. And my point is that I will just exemplify it. If you have a class of animals, fish, dog, elephant, there are all animals in a class, and you are going to teach them swimming. The natural instinct of learning swimming is only for fish. And my teacher goes to the class with the syllabus, he has to teach there a fish. And tomorrow you are telling me that we'll be conducting a placement test. Placement test is equivalent to the entrance test for other animals other than fish, because the natural instinct of learning for swimming was only for fish. So it is not as simple as we are taking it. We need change on many fronts. First of all, I said we need to denounce education as business. We'll have to take purely as an education, and Gurukul system has to be given one more chance in our country. Secondly, you will have to enhance the standards of schools in terms of stress-free level of teaching and learning. You will have to reduce the working hours in the school. You will have to give sports and other activities a good amount of time, and you will have to make lucrative schools. Not you will just thrust on completion of homework, dictations by the management, dictation by the teachers. You will have to take into account the needs and wants of students at their elementary level. I think this is enough. You will just guide me in this.
Well, you spoke your heart. Thank you very much.
One clarification, can I make one?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Mr. Ahmad, you and I are speaking the same language. I didn't say that placement should be common for everybody. I also mentioned the word differentiated. It has to be differentiated to identify the current knowledge base of the student for learning a new skill. So that is why placement is used. So that one is to be personalized. It is not that the swimming is a common standard for monkeys, elephants, and fish and birds. No, it is not like that. Placement is actually understanding the current knowledge level and skills of the students for supporting the student for upskilling. That's what I mentioned.
We take final 2 questions for today, and then we'll call it a day. Deepika, your question, and then we'll come to Ghulam Nabi, your question. Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you, Gaurav. I'm very glad that we're having this discussion, and it's touched a chord somewhere. and I have to share my experience. We are a CBSE senior secondary school, and a couple of years ago, we started with the senior secondary section. We were of the opinion that children waste a lot of time, going out to academies and schooling and, going all over the place. So we decided to run an integrated program within the school. And mind you, we had best of the teachers, very good staff, very good education, which was given to the children. We were training them for competitive exams, and the ones who did not want to go in for competitive exams were coached for the board exams, and they did exceedingly well. Well, we ran the course for 3 years, and then eventually we had to shut it down because we just could not change the mindset of the parents. Irrespective of the results that we showed, irrespective of the kind of coaching that we gave in the school premises to the students, irrespective of the kind of hard work that was put in by the teachers, we just had to shut it down. And I'm sure most of you would know that very recently there was this Google form which was circulated by the CBSE to most principals, asking them to fill it in, saying that they wanted to understand why children were dropping out of CBSE schools after grade 10. And my question actually is more of a concern that with CUET, like Gaurav, you mentioned, our biggest fear is that we're going to start losing children right from grade 8. Here we are losing children after grade 10. They're going to go out after grade 8. And what is the kind of discussion that is happening in CBSE corridors or otherwise? Is there something that is going to be a change coming up in the future in this scenario? Because like Jyoti ma'am mentioned, academies are churning out students, not human beings. They, the kind of scores and results that you see on big hoardings and all that, that is not the reality of our education. So that's my question to you. It's more of a concern, actually.
I would like to intervene just for a second, if I'm allowed, just for a second.
Please.
My point is that as she was saying me that the drop change starts from standard 8. This is the failure of our primary schooling. It is my personal experience that the first 5 years of schooling are so important that you will consider the book of first 5 years are book of the student, and whatever he learns afterwards throughout his life is the footnote of that book. That means in first 5 years we have not been able to inculcate freedom, wisdom among our children so that they are not decisive, they are not able to take correct decision. It is very much essential that we are not going to change our system from standard 8, 9, 10, 11th. We will have to change our system from nursery classes, because if you want to have a good standard of education, quality of education, then you must be having a good primary schooling. The nation who are having good primary schools is a prosperous country. So our thrust should not be only on higher education. It should start right from class first. Number one. Number two is this. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, we all are hearing you. Don't worry.
She was telling me that they have started an integrated school, and we have also started in Kashmir integrated school, but our results are tremendous. Now students are coming to our expectations, and parents are also cooperating. They are gradually making difference between coaching center and school. You cannot add virtues, you cannot add personality. आप शेप नहीं कर सकेंगे पर्सनालिटी एक कोचिंग सेंटर में बच्चे की, वो स्कूल में ही आप कर सकते हैं। आप देखिए कि इन हायर जब बच्चा बड़ा हो जाता है तो पेरेंट्स को भी आज बहुत शिकायत होती है रूड बिहेवियर बच्चों का, उनका एबनॉर्मल होना। इट इज बिकॉज ऑफ दिस इंटरवेंशन ऑफ कोचिंग सेंटर्स। सो जो स्कूल्स में जो वी आर बिकमिंग विक्टिम्स, आवर पेरेंट्स आर बिकमिंग विक्टिम्स ऑफ जो टेक्नोलॉजी यूज कर रहे हैं कोचिंग सेंटर्स, या जो एजुकेशन बेचने वाले लोग हैं जो अपनी टैक्टिक्स इस्तेमाल करते हैं, we are becoming prey of that. So gradually we'll have to start it. It will take some time. We'll have to it's a collective effort in order to change the system.
Yeah, well said. Thank you. Dr. Jyoti, while I think what Deepika implied was that she needed a little more of systemic sort of a policy level sort of intervention. Is any board in India thinking on those lines, while usually CBSE comes up as the top of the mind board because being the largest board? Are the boards by any way considering anything? How do we curtail?
Gaurava, the integrated program,
Mhm.
what we all talk about is nothing but it is also coaching. And coachings in school are not allowed. So when we talk about, I was just hearing the conversation of everyone here.
Ma'am,
it is very easy to, let me just finish.
I need only one point.
Mirza, let her complete her point. Yeah, let her complete her point.
Only one point.
Until and unless the CBSE, until I would say the CBSE doesn't know that you're running coaching in your premises, it has not given you a notice of commercialization. The moment they get to know that you're doing something else, which is apart from, teaching them, now in the NCF, they are also defining the number of hours and they're also defining the number of days that the school should run. So whether we do the integrated classes or we do the coachings or we do anything, the school should by itself suffice the learning, the concept-based learning. So if you want to retain the children in your school, then the quality of education that you impart has to be very good. There is a little difference between how the JEE exams, ask the questions and how the board exams ask the questions. But it is converging. If we pick up the JEE papers of the last 2 years and we pick up the board papers of the science, we see there is a convergence there because 10% of the paper of the board is also converted into the competency based every year. So we see a convergence there. It is case study based. We see MCQs even in the board papers. So it is converging. It will take a little while to converge. And we discussed that with the secretary today, that somewhere the syllabus of both the competitive examinations as well as the board examinations has to be the same. When we talk about CUET, the very first orientation that was done by the NTA for the students and for the parents and for the teachers and for the schools, it was that it is nothing out of what you are learning in your classroom. If you learned in your classrooms well, you will be able to give the CUET exam. And actually speaking, both the years, this year also and the last year also, a lot of teachers from these schools have participated into creating the confidential material. They were able to do that because they were school teachers. Similarly, even the JEE syllabus and the school syllabus is pretty much the same. It is only one particular topic that is not there in the JEE syllabus of the boards, and there is one topic of the board which is not there, which is there of JEE, which is not there in the board. So there is not too much of the difference. Even in the medical, the syllabus is the same, but the schools and the teachers are so busy preparing the children for the board examinations that they are not able to focus on the questioning skills that are required for the competitive examinations. So the concepts are the same, the physics is the same, the chemistry is the same, the maths is the same. It is only the speed and the accuracy and the training of the children on the competency-based questions that the JEE asks, that the coaching centers score on. So I would suggest that the children, whether, I don't know, I'm just thinking aloud, either all the schools go into that mode where they set aside some time for preparing the children for the test preps, or the syllabus converges, or the government comes up with a policy where some gap is given to the children, where those children prepare and then they go for their higher ed. Something has to be done. Either we prepone the board exams, have the board exams, let us say, in November, December, have the competitive examinations in June, July, and then their session begins in autumn or in fall, like the rest of the world begins their colleges in August, September. So something needs to be done here. And we've made enough noise today with Secretary Education, because this was also historic today. It is never that the entire school education, Ministry of Education, the Department of School Education and Literacy has come down to interact with the school principals as to what are your burning issues. And they came to listen to us. There were the questions that they posed also on inclusion and, on RT. But it was majorly our questions that they were answering and articulating their own vision. So we've said enough. And I'm sure as pressure groups, we can together as schools write to them. But opening the coaching centers again in the classrooms in whatever form, I don't think that's the way forward.
Thank you. Very well explained. I think.
Yeah. So may I just take a few seconds to respond to Jyoti ma'am. I think, ma'am, you misunderstood me when I said integrated program. We were not running a coaching institute in the school premises. We had teachers who were appointed, in the school, and they were the ones who were teaching all these students for everything that they needed to be taught for. So it wasn't a coaching institute, it wasn't a third party agency or an academy coming in and coaching students for competitive exams. No, my concern is that what happens is after grade 10, when the academies start, attracting students and giving them these high flown dreams about this child of yours is going to go into an IIT or into AIMS or any of these premier institutes, they get influenced by them, and they usually have a tie-up with a state board school, which gives them all the flexibility of attendance. That is what seems to be, we have a lot of this is the admission time, because this is the time when class 10 results were announced, and you cannot even imagine the number of parents and students who come to us and say, please give us admission to dummy classes. And this is a reality. It's happening. We are a group of 22 schools. I am the president of the Sahodya schools in Ahmednagar. And it's the reality with all the CBSE senior secondary schools. It's not just my school or a handful. It's with all the schools.
It is across the board, in
It's
fact.
not just the schools. I mean, today the chairperson of CBSE, in a candid conversation that we were having after the session, said that there were Andhra schools who were coming in the fold of the CBSE. The Andhra board, government schools, some 1,000 schools, either they have come in or they are coming in into the CBSE. And ma'am was saying that they recognize Narayana and Chaitanya, which are the coaching centers, as the legal entities. So ma'am may have told them that what is more important for you? Is it the CBSE or is it the coaching center? So the government said that the Narayana and the Chaitanya is more important for them. They can lead CBSE, but they can't lead them because that's their vote bank. So, and the maximum number of children probably going into IITs are from Andhra. So, and probably that is why even Karnataka is thinking of a new education policy. So there are, it's like folds within the folds. There may not be a particular answer. And now, even when I was speaking, I said, I'm not too sure of an answer. I'm just speaking aloud because today only if we are discussing NCF, we are talking about NEP. As an educator, if I was to give holistic education to a child, I can't be thinking about coaching centers. I can't be utilizing the time of a child that has to be utilized in building up the skills in all the domains into giving the coaching to the children. If we have to holistically develop a child, and the child of 17, 18 years is very vulnerable to so many things. I mean, you have to give the emotional skills to the children, the affective domain, the physical domain, the psychological domain, everything has to develop. So I'm just thinking aloud with all of you being there. I don't know what the correct answer is.
I had muted Mr. Mir. Over to you. You have to make an observation. Let's hear it from you, and then we'll call it a day. Mirji, you'll have to mute us yourself at your end. एक बार try करिए दोबारा से. We cannot hear you. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay.
Now we can hear you.
There is only one. Our integrated school must not be mistaken. What is coaching for us? Coaching for us is good teaching. Good teaching, as my sister was telling us that integrated system means different thing to us, as Miss Jyoti was telling us. It is not, we are not retaining our students for after class in our schools. We have invested, reduced the time of the students in order to make the system adjustable to the students. What we did, we improved the communication efforts, because we analyzed it when we were analyzing the problem, why students prefer coaching centers, they leave schools. We could find that we are not able to communicate betterly to our students. We increase it. Our communication efforts. We make them effective. With the result, we reduced the time. We gave ample time for other things, as she was telling me, for skill development, for value development, for personality development. So our system, it has improved from previous system. Now it's a different system. Our coaching efforts in our schools does not mean, we simply mean by coaching, we mean good teaching, not we are opening a coaching center in our school. Though.
Okay. Completely out of time. So thank you very much, everyone. I think I'll just give Mr. Zargar the final word, because he is saying that I am only restricting it to 2-3 people, which is not the case, Mr. Zargar. The idea was that he had a point which I had interjected and stopped him in between, which is why I let him complete.
I wish, thank you for giving me the chance. I wish that I had chipped in earlier also. So because of the fact that whatever you talked about, I plainly, squarely place the responsibility on myself as an educator and as a teacher. I know pretty well that I'm quite oblivious of what exactly curriculum is, where from my school curriculum comes, and what exactly is the role of the textbook and the syllabus. And when I say, I unfortunately am the author of the CCE, Continuous Comprehensive Evaluation. But the fact is that, well, it was not taken in its entirety. Only that part of it was taken which suited my educators. They understood it well. I'm sure had they taken this comprehensive continuous evaluation in all seriousness, that would address to all the causes and the evils that have crept in our education system. I'm sorry to say and share it with all my revered participants there. Believe me, don't have this illusion that what we are doing in schools, that learning is taking place. No, I am categorical about it, that the way it should have been, it doesn't go that way. And that's why the substitutes have come in the form of the mushroom growth of the coaching centers. And I personally believe that if we really, as educators, as administrators, try to tailor our system the way it is to be tailored as per the trends and the contemporary society, I'm sure that, well, this problem will go. I'm sorry to say, I'm scarcely blaming myself that I have not been able to cater to the requirements of my students, wherein ultimately they look for the alternatives.
On that note, which is, I think, a very positive note, be the change you want to see in this world. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for joining in and staying back till 7 in the evening. I would like to express my sincere thank you to all my 3 panelists, Dr. Jyoti, Dr. Pillai, and Mr. Abhishek Bagchi. And I will also thank everybody who could stay back and join this lovely conversation. I hope it did add value to your daily life, if I may say so. And as an educator, we look forward to see you sometime next, whenever we plan this again. Thank you very much and have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.